Good morning and happy hump day to you all, and welcome back to Sideline Talk podcast. Look, I said last week that I didn't know what I was doing coming back. It was horrible timing, and again, Arsenal make it difficult. But yeah, lots to talk about this morning. We're going to round up on the weekend action. We're going to be talking about last night's games, tonight's big topic, of course, tomorrow's fixtures. Plenty to get into, talking about all the big results and what's to come at the top and the bottom. Hope everyone is doing well. Before we get into it, do make sure you smash those buttons, hit the like button and subscribe if you are watching. Dale, mate, how's things with you?
Well, good, mate. You all right?
Yeah. Well,
Liverpool got back-to-back wins, mate. We're on top of the clouds again.
I don't know what's going on. I should have brought this back earlier, shouldn't I? I'd have been really there, trying to get that nibble off yourself and Lee when he comes back next season. But look, I'm nervous. To be honest, I don't know how I feel, really. Bit anxious, bit nervous, somewhat excited. Make of that what you will. I mean, you've been there. Liverpool obviously been in this position for God knows how many seasons. So we'll see what happens. Plenty of few beers this afternoon, definitely, to get myself going. I'm just going to need to be in a bit of a position where, I expect the unexpected. But I want to get an outsider's point of view on Friday night. We'll start there, I guess. And then we'll sort of work into tonight's big game. And then we'll talk about the rest, because I think, obviously, this is going to take up the most time indeed. What was your thoughts on this crazy Friday night game, Arsenal 3, Southampton 3?
To be honest with you, I think it reminds me a bit of what Liverpool used to be like before Klopp came in and when we had that little period under Rodgers. And do you know what it is? I've kind of looked at Arsenal, and when they play the better teams, they don't have as much of the ball, and most of their game is built on counter-attacking football, which is they sit in, they defend well, they've got a good organised shape now, and then they break quickly with Martinelli, Saka, Odegaard, all of their front players, Jesus. And I think when they're playing the lesser teams, as we've seen this season on a number of occasions, I think when you're expected to have the ball, when you're expected to be the one that dominates possession, you play against a team like Southampton who want to break on you, like what Bournemouth did. And I know there's been previous games throughout the season where Arsenal have kind of struggled to break down and deal with these smaller teams. I mean, a lot of the season you've managed to creep over the line with it, but I just think that, I think that is the problem, is that when you're expected to go and beat these teams, that's when actually the pressure comes. Whereas a game like tonight, you're kind of expected to lose, and a lot of people have kind of written Arsenal off and saying they haven't really got much of a chance. But in reality, they actually play better against these sort of sides. I think the game in itself...
Hopefully.
I think the game in itself is... Listen, Southampton are obviously they've got nothing to lose. They're throwing everything at it. If they went to the Emirates and got beat 4-0, no one really would have cared. Everyone's pretty much condemned them to relegation anyway. Aaron Ramsdale, I think, is starting to... Since Liverpool, since he had the worldie game of his life, he's looked a bit shaky. You conceded it within a minute against Bournemouth, I think it was. You've conceded in the first couple of minutes against Southampton.
He looked a bit all over the place, didn't he? Not just a mistake either. He just didn't seem like he was...
I think obviously there's a little bit of nerves kicking in, which is natural. I think a lot of, even like say, the fans are nervous. You're within touching distance now. You've got one hurdle to get over, and it's basically there. I think obviously you don't want to keep giving the teams a head start. Doesn't matter who you're playing, whether it's bottom of the league or top of the league. In the Premier League now, it's quite rare that you see a team come from behind to win a game. It doesn't happen that often. It used to happen a lot. It used to be that you could go 2-0 down in a game and you'd still be pretty confident you'd get it back. But I think now that the squads, especially at the lower end of the table, are a lot better than they used to be. So you can't keep giving away goals. I think Arsenal are shipping goals at the minute. 2 against Liverpool, 2 against West Ham, 3 at Southampton at home. I think there was 2 at Bournemouth at home. I can't really remember the last time that Arsenal kept a clean sheet, if I'm being honest with you. It does feel like you're conceding a lot of goals, and
worrying time as well, because this is
it does feel like that. It does feel like kind of City have got to that point where they're in gear now, they're flying, and Arsenal have kind of had that period, and it just feels like it's tailing off a little bit. But listen, it was a mental game, crazy game. I mean, I was actually out on Friday. I didn't see it. I I was checking on the scores and I saw it was 3-1, and I think like a lot of people, we thought that was it. They've blown it. I think they managed to obviously get the 2 goals back in the last few minutes, which, I mean, if you're looking back at it now, if you get a result tonight, that point could be very, very important. But listen, you can't put it this way: you can't afford to make them mistakes against Man City tonight. That's a given. You can't go into that game tonight with any sort of doubt. I think you've just got to go into it and be as positive as you can be. I know that you played them in the FA Cup, and I think you gave them a pretty good game up at their place. I think you could have actually had enough chances to win that game on the day. And obviously at the Emirates, it was a touchy game for large parts. I know they just about nicked it in the end, and their quality shone through. But I just worry about your back four. I think Rob Holding is such a drop off to Saliba. And
100%.
When Gabriel was playing with Saliba, Gabriel looks like a better footballer. But I think when he plays with Rob Holding, we see that he's not the man that I think a lot of people think Gabriel is. I think he's a good centre half. I don't think he's a great centre half, but I think he needs a good centre half or a great centre half next to him in order to get the best out of him. And I think when he's the one that has to be the leader in the back four and has to be the one that takes control, I think that's when the mistakes happen with Gabriel. But that's what would worry me. And he's coming up against a freak tonight who can't stop scoring goals.
Bloody robot, isn't he? Even that disallowed goal at the weekend in the FA Cup, it's ridiculous.
I mean, I've been critical of Haaland, and I'm still not. I call him a great finisher, but not a very good footballer, and that's as weird as that.
I see where you're going with that, though. I can see where you're going. He's scoring goals, but you do need the full package to be put in certain conversations.
I think that's it. I think Man City fans are not going to give 2 hoots. At the end of the day, they brought him in to score goals, and that's
45, 46 goals or whatever it is. So,
at the end of the day, but I personally never questioned that he would score goals at Manchester City. I think even the most bang average striker would score plenty of goals at City. But he fits their system. I think if you put him in a Chelsea, if you put him in a Liverpool, even if you put him into an Arsenal to a certain extent, I don't think that he would be anywhere near them numbers. He would score goals, of course, because then teams create chances, but I still don't think he'd be anywhere near them numbers. I think
City suit him, I think, and I think there's certain teams that don't suit him. A player like him, anyway, he gets to the end of things. He leaps and bounds, didn't he? And he's just got the pace to match it as well, which kind of helps. I don't want to talk too much on Friday night because I'm trying to put that past me now, and I'm trying to just focus on, because at the end of the day, if we lose tonight, none of that matters. This was always what it came down to. Obviously, it would have been nice to not drop points in our last 3 games. That's 3 points, out of 9 now. It's not good enough at all, really, in our last 3. I think what we're starting to see is the fact that we haven't got enough experience in our squad, and the experience we've got are not showing it consistently enough. Odegaard was good within the last 20 minutes of the game. A good finish from him to get us back into it. And he started showing that. But you mentioned about the drop-off from Saliba to Holding. I don't think that's the only issue. There's drop-offs everywhere. When we lose Xhaka, which we did on Friday night, there's a huge, huge difference. Vieira, nowhere near cutting it. Got to be our worst flop. It's got to be the flop of the season from an Arsenal perspective, because he just doesn't look up to it. We paid 30 million for him. At the time, we didn't necessarily need a player in his position. We needed to, we had bigger fish to fry. We had defence and centre midfield like we're starting to see now. And Vieira's just not up to the task, unfortunately. Maybe he will get there, but I think for 30 million, I'm not comparing him to Odegaard, but if you look at the money we spent on Odegaard, which was similar, there's a huge, huge gap. So for me, I think it's a case of the big players stepping up when it matters most, because we've got a young squad, and we're starting to see that with them getting a bit shaky now, as you mentioned. The pressure's getting to them a little bit. Martinelli, Saka, the weight is on all their shoulders, and they're only in their early 20s. So yes, it's what you're paid to do, and at the end of the day, it's your job. But huge, huge pressure, and I'm surprised this didn't happen sooner in the season. I'm just a bit ashamed that it's happened at this time when City are starting to fire in all cylinders. But
The thing is, I think everyone's talking quite negatively, and obviously because it's kind of, if you'd have won them 3 games, it would be a different conversation. I think we'd be all saying, well,
Yeah, there's the
they're
if
gonna
button
go
maybe,
into
isn't there? Like if my grandma had wheels, she'd be a bike sort of thing.
Yeah,
Like because
I think you've got. I think Arsenal have just got to look at the end of the day. Yeah, you've dropped points, but you've also gained 3 more.
yeah,
Before them 3 games, you're 3 points further or closer to the title than you was before them games. You haven't lost. You've drawn 3 games now. Obviously, you can question the way in which you've drawn them games. You was ahead comfortably in 2 of them, and they've come back, and then you've had a comeback in the 3rd one to obviously to save a point. Now, as a fat football fan, I'd look at it in more of a positive light and say, well, we've come back. We've shown we can come back. We've shown that we can be down in games. For the first 25 minutes in both the Liverpool and the West Ham game, you was absolutely on top of both teams. You was in, like, the football you was playing was some of the best football we've seen all season. So I think you can look at it from that point of view. Yes, you're playing in the Premier League. You're always going to give away chances to top teams. You know, West Ham, they're a better side than what their league position shows. Liverpool are a better side than what their league position shows, and Southampton are fighting for their lives, and you're under pressure trying to win a title. And I've listened to a lot of Arsenal fans who are saying, yeah, when you're playing bottom of the league, you should, especially if you want to win a title, you've got to go and beat these teams. But it's always easier said than done, you know.
Yeah.
Like you say,
well, I mean, Southampton beat City this season.
This
so
is what I'm saying.
yeah, so that shows the difference. It's not always going to be plain sailing.
As well, like you don't the players you're talking about, the Saka, the Martinellis, your Odegaards, Salibas, Gabriels, Ramsdale. They say none of them have ever been in a title challenge before. You don't get the experience unless you go through it. Now, what happens tonight, and we'll get on to tonight, and what happens for the rest of the season, you only get that experience by being in a title race. Now, look at Liverpool. The season where everyone tipped us to go toe to toe with City, we lost out by a point. Most of our players at that point have never been in a title charge, and then the following season we backed it up and we went and beat them. So it kind of mirrors a little bit like what Liverpool had done. It was getting to the end of that season, and Liverpool were sort of, making a few mistakes, dropping a few points. Man City were just on a roll, and we missed out by a point. But the next season, we came back with pretty much little investment, pretty much the same team. We was a year older, a year more experienced, and we went toe to toe with them again and managed to beat them to the league title. So
yeah, it can happen.
It can happen.
This season, look, City for the last few seasons have been, up there. It's a mountain to climb, and not many teams have done it. You've done it once. Not many other teams would be capable of even competing. So the fact that we're at the level we're at now, yeah, look, needless to say, regardless of the outcome, I think every Arsenal fan is going to be proud of what this team has done this season.
I do just think though. I think Arteta was. I think he was wrong in what he said after the game. I think when he come out and he said, I'm here to offer cuddles and I'm here to do all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, now we've got a job to do at the end of the day. We haven't got time to sulk about. I was a bit disappointed
with him with that. I would have rather him said a bit more fighting talk and said, you know what, we've let ourselves down today. We've dropped 2 points, but
we're going
to go to City. We're going to prove everyone wrong. We're going to go there. We're going to win. That's what I think a lot of the Arsenal fans wanted to say. I wanted to hear. I think listening to him say, well, if my players need a cuddle, I'll give them a cuddle. That's a defeatist mentality to me. That's someone who's basically, I think, deep down thinking we've blown it. Yeah. And I don't think whether you think that or not, I just think you need to come out and say, nah, we're still in this. Wednesday,
I agree with your comment there. I think you've got to take when you're having an interview after a defeat like that, and you've got a certain game, coming up on your hands. You've got to be raring to go again. You've got to put it behind you straight away, and that goes to the manager.
You can say all that stuff in the changing room. You can say all the cuddle stuff in the changing room. You can do all that to the players. Keep that in house.
Don't make yourself look weak.
I think it was almost listening to his interview. It felt like he thought we've blown it. But I don't, whether you think that or not, I think you've just got to come out and lie almost and say, no, do you know what? We're going to go Kevin Keegan style. We're going to go there and we're going to win. We're going to prove everyone that we're better than them. We're going to prove everyone that we deserve to be where we are.
It's a tough one, but I mean, I suppose we'll get into this evening because there's so much to discuss. I've never known so much football in 1 week. But the way I see it, this is a huge opportunity. The biggest we've had, in fact, in my generation anyway. Perhaps earlier on, before my time, there might have been a bigger game than this, but I'm looking back and I can't remember a title being on the line as much as what it is tonight. And we need to win. I think this is where it's going to become challenging. Is that City can afford to take this game and play it out. And I don't think they will, but they can afford to get the point. And I think they'll know that's enough because they've then got the 2 games in hand on us where, it's a matter of just winning the rest of their games. And realistically, on paper, this is their toughest fixture, I think, because they've seen what we can do at Ethiad at the FA Cup, and obviously what other teams have done at the Ethiad this season. It's not always come gold. They've not always completely, rinsed the team. Some of the wins they've got haven't been as easy. I think my worry is if we don't do it tonight, I think there's an opportunity for us to still be in it because City could still slip up. They've got Everton away, which will be massive because Everton are fighting for their lives. Obviously, we'll talk about the weekend results and this week's games coming up. And Brighton away, well, that's difficult for everybody. It's probably one of the hardest fixtures this season for any team. So, and we've got the same. We've got Newcastle away coming up. We never, ever played comfortably against Chelsea, no matter what form they're in. And it's chalk and cheese. I think for me, what we can't afford to do is the errors we've been making in the last 2 or 3 games. The West Ham game, Zinchenko just didn't look great there. I think it was the Liverpool game, actually, and then West Ham, Tierney came in and then Zinchenko came back. That was it. And he made a mistake again on Friday, just losing his man. I'm not sure.
I was thinking about it today, and I'm thinking about what Arteta might do. And I personally think we might see a world where he puts Ben White to centre back and brings in Tomiyasu.
The thing is, last time Tomiyasu played against Man City, I know exactly what happened. That was an error there. He played the ball back. Kevin De Bruyne took it.
I think from a defensive point of view, I just don't see how you could go into a game like this with Rob Holding at centre half.
Yeah, I agree. I've seen a lot of
Tomiyasu. I think Tomiyasu on his day is a very good one-on-one defender. I think he will allow the likes of whether it's Tierney or Zinchenko start a left back. He'll allow that full back to push forward because he's not as attacking as maybe the other side. So I think you're almost, when you haven't got the ball and Zinchenko does that little move where he goes and plays in sort of central midfield areas, I think you're almost then playing with 3 centre backs because I know Tomiyasu can play centre back as well.
I think he's out. I think Tomiyasu's out because I've not seen.
Injured?
Yeah, he's been injured for time. I was going to say. I was thinking, why isn't Tomiyasu been playing? But yeah, that would explain.
If he's injured, then maybe.
I think our only option is realistically to either go with your gut and trust what you've been doing, although you can argue that you're now fixing what is broken because it's not working at the back there. We've conceded far too many goals, as we've just been discussing. 7 goals.
Who's the new lad? Who's the Polish lad that you bought?
Jacob Pruitt, no chance. I've said if he comes in for this game, God knows if I'll watch kickoff because I'll need a few drinks behind me.
If Tomiyasu is not right, I mean, is there anyone else you can play?
There's a young lad, which would be outrageous. It's too big a game.
I think he'll just have to
change formation, if anything. I think maybe just go for a 3-1-2-3.
Could you see Tierney and Gabriel? Because I know Tierney plays centre back for Scotland in a back 3.
Maybe. I think he could do that. He might go for like a 3-1-2-1-3 type of thing, maybe. But I just don't see Arteta. I don't see that in Arteta.
No, I don't
see him switching up that man.
I do think he'll stick with what he's done. My only thing is, this is the way I look at it when you play City. It's you've got to stop the ball getting to Haaland and getting into those areas. So if you can sacrifice a defender, i.e. Rob Holding, and get another central midfielder on the pitch, whether it's you play Xhaka and Partey Holding with Odegaard just in front. You could then use Martinelli and Saka as almost wing backs when you haven't got the ball.
Martinelli as a wing back. Oh, I don't know.
I'm just saying when you haven't got the ball. So when you haven't got the ball, you ask them to sit in, and then when you have got the ball, you've got their pace to go forward. And Zinchenko, obviously, I mean, is there a world in which Zinchenko could start central midfield?
I personally, and I don't know how other fans are going to feel about this, but there's lots to talk around Rob Holding. I mean, we've done it ourselves this morning. And the fact we can't go into this game with Rob Holding, I don't think he's the only danger and the only weak link in that back line. Zinchenko has shown in the last few games that he can lose his man very easily. He did it against Mo Salah.
I think Zinchenko's never really been a great one-on-one defender. I think he's always
he just isn't. And the problem is, if anyone is going to know Zinchenko's pressure point, it's
Mm.
Pep Guardiola, and it's the players that are playing for him. They all know Zinchenko. They know what he does. He likes to get into the midfield, and that creates a space on the right wing. And City have got Bernardo Silva. They've got Mahrez. Foden's now back in training. You know, you've got three options there where it's like we can't afford to
I
let
do
them.
think if Mahrez is starting, I would be very surprised if Zinchenko plays, because I think Zinchenko vacating that area where Mahrez is.
Yeah, he just scored a hat trick as well, so he's going to
He's
be
a very
confident as ever.
he's an odd player, Mahrez. He can flatter to deceive quite a lot, but then when he does turn it on, he's a very difficult player to sort of control and stop.
Yeah,
I,
that's
I
the thing
personally
though as
think
well.
I think he's going to start Tierney.
Yeah, I hope so. I would
think
like to
he's going to
see.
go. This would be the team that I think he's going to go for. I think he'll go
Go on,
Ramsdale.
this would be interesting. I
I
want to
think
see how different we are.
he's going to go Ramsdale in goal. He's going to go with White, Holding, Gabriel, and Tierney. I think he'll go Partey, Xhaka, and Odegaard in midfield, as we know, and then Jesus, Martinelli, Saka. I assume
Yeah,
Xhaka's fit.
I'm making the same two changes: Tierney and Xhaka back in. I'm
Yeah, I
making.
assume Xhaka's fit. I don't. Was he left out? Or
Yeah,
was he
I think they announced today that he's well enough, so
Yeah,
he'll be
he'll play.
starting. He
He'll
was
get
only
content.
ill. I mean, the way I see it, if you're ill and you're well enough to be coming back, you're probably back in
He'll be
the
playing.
team sheet.
They'll be just giving him tablets and whatnot.
Yeah, and he'll want to be as well. Xhaka's one of them people. He'll make sure that he's ready because he knows what kind of a game this is. I think the only thing is we have weak links still. City don't. I look at that City team. I've seen this morning that Nathan Ake is not playing, which is probably the only good news we can get out of that because he's had a great season.
Isn't Laporte back though? Is Laporte back?
Potentially, yeah, that's the thing.
He'll probably play
This
Laporte
goes back to the conversation of our depth and theirs. You know, they can
again,
afford to lose a player.
These are the games where Pep does silly things. He does weird stuff in these big games. With these games where he tries to, because he knows Arteta knows him really well. I just wonder whether he's going to do something weird. Do you know what I mean? Like he'll bring Rico Lewis in to play central midfield or something bizarre.
And it's the comment I made earlier about Zinchenko and how the players will know what he's like and capable of. Jesus, this is a big debate because those defenders, John Stones in particular, he's in every team of the season at the moment. He has been incredible. And if there's anyone that knows Jesus and what he's capable of and his movements, it's going to be the entire. But they've probably been, they haven't even needed to research much because they played with this guy for years. He's been out injured for a couple of months, so it's not like he's adapted to a new way or whatever. But I would be. It's annoying because we have depth in the wrong areas. We have depth where we're playing good. For example, Martinelli's been firing. Jesus, he scored 2 goals in his game back. Okay, last week he wasn't as good. But Trossard coming in off the bench in the second half will be really threatening because he's known to score in big games. He's done it for us. He did it for Brighton. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm hoping if things aren't going our way, or even if it's at a loose end, a 1 or a 0-0, he's someone that can come on and change the game. Stones, I think, is going to give Jesus a bit of a difficult night. I'm hoping Saka can get down on the right wing, though, depending on who they play at left back in Ake's absence.
Come on, let's get onto it. What's the score going to be? What's your head and your heart saying?
I'm going to stick with what I've said a week at work, 2-2.
2-2.
Yeah, I think Haaland inevitably. I think potentially Grealish. I think we're going to be so focused on Haaland. Grealish is just going to be able to cut inside. I think White's going to have to double. White's going to get doubled up on basically because Haaland's going to do it. He's going to have a job to do with Haaland to help out Holding, and I think he's also going to have Grealish running up at him. So it's going to be a tough night for Ben White. But yeah, 2-2. And for us, I think I'm going to go Saka and probably Odegaard.
I could see a world in which 2-2 happens. I find it quite hard to predict these games, but my head and my heart tells me 3-1 City. I don't know why. I think Arsenal will start well, and I think you'll do well again, like you have done for this first sort of half an hour. I think you'll frustrate City. I think you'll create a few chances. I think one of the most important things for Arsenal is to get a goal. I think if you can get the first goal, that will give you confidence to go on for the rest of the game. But I just worry about the back four and the goalkeeper. given their form. That we know Ramsdale can produce.
Ramsdale needs a night like that second half at Anfield. He really
We
needs
know
a
he's
good
a great
night.
goalkeeper. He's been one of the best, probably the best goalkeeper this season in terms of, you know, his all-round game. He hasn't made that many mistakes that I can remember. I think he's made the odd one or two, but I think most keepers do throughout a season. You know, he saved you a point at Anfield when really he shouldn't have needed to. All right, he made a mistake against Southampton, but I think if he has a good game, I think if he has a good game, we've got a great chance of getting a result.
We can't start anything like Friday. We need the complete opposite to what we did on Friday night.
I just worry about Haaland in that channel. He loves that channel in between the fullback and the centre half, and I just worry about not so much Gabriel's side, because I think Gabriel's got the physicality to match him. He's got the pace to match him. I worry about that gap between Ben White and Rob Holding, that area where he
Grealish and Haaland have been linking up all season as well.
That's the side. Yeah,
that's our weak side, and that's their strength, I think. So it's going to be an interesting night. But let's move on to another topic that I can't wait to talk about. Newcastle 6, Tottenham 1. The ship is sinking. It still continues. My God, what a performance from the Geordies at St James's Park. And yeah, Tottenham, it's just getting worse and worse for them. And we're starting to see it really happen for Newcastle. You've got to put your hats off to the team and Eddie Howe in particular, because we've seen this season especially, it's proven how hard it is enough for a manager to survive in this league. But to impress in the way that he is doing so is special. And, you know, they've had money spent, but not at the level we've seen other teams done. You know, like Chelsea have gone and spent their 600 mil in a certain amount of seasons. I think Newcastle have spent their money wisely. And we're starting to see that as well. Isaac, you know, finally hitting form at the right time, 7 goals in 7 games. Joe Willock finding his feet finally under Eddie Howe too. What an assist that was. I mean, that was one of the best balls I've seen, I think, all season for a very, very long time. Just the way he pinged it as well. But let's start on Tottenham, Dale. I feel like we were here last week just discussing them. But how much more can Harry Kane take?
Harry Kane's gone. It sounds stupid to say it, but I think it might be the best thing for him. I know it's as stupid as that might sound. I think he's outgrown Tottenham now. I think
bring the money in as well, get a bit of money for him and rebuild.
Yeah, I think it's time for them just to completely throw everything out the window. The Harry Kane, trying to hold on to Harry Kane, let him go. Just let him go. He's too good for Tottenham now. He needs to go and play for a team that's going to be in the Champions League and challenging for trophies. He's given it his best shot with them. It's time to move on. They're going to get a hefty amount of money for him. They just need to go just to have a major overhaul. They need to get rid of a lot of the deadwood. You know, your Ben Davises, your Dyers, Lloris.
Absolute shambles. And they were 3-0 down, and, you know, they were kicking the ball away. And it was like,
they just need a complete reset. They need to just pick a young manager, get a manager in, a young manager who's fresh. I mean, get Nagelsmann in, for example. Give him what he wants. Give him the money that he needs to build a team. They need to go back to, instead of being linked with all of the top players around Europe, go back to almost the mold that they used to have when they picked up the likes of like your Modric's and your Bales and these sort of players and turned them into stars. They need to go back to that model.
They do need to find some like young, fresh,
hungry.
Next big thing, I guess.
You can see it. It's just stale. Everything's stale. I mean, you've sacked a manager because the ideas weren't working, and you've kept his number 2 in charge, who's doing the same thing that he's learned from the guy who's just been sacked. It's just
that's a good point as well, because I mean things get worse because they go and fire Stellini after this.
How can you sack an interim manager?
This is what I don't understand, right? And I've always looked at it this way: a co-captain is only as good as the pilot. So if this plane's gone down into the ground, but
this is lost in the ocean. Mate.
Yeah, I don't know where it's gone. But how can you? First of all, getting rid of Conte and keeping Stellini, there's questions of red flags right there. And then the way I see it, Ryan Mason, he's got a part to play in 6-1 as well. You know, he's played a part in that defeat. So why on earth is he sticking around?
The thing is, as well, I don't get it. I mean, Poch is literally on the verge of Chelsea job, so they must have known when they sacked Conte that either Poch was or wasn't interested, whether they wanted him or whether he didn't want to come back, whatever. But I just don't understand clubs that sack a manager when they haven't got the next one lined up. Like look at Aston Villa, for example. They're a perfect example of how it can happen if you plan properly. You sacked Steven Gerrard, who was having a torrid time. The fans weren't on side. The players weren't on side. They brought Emery in within a matter of, I think it was a matter of hours, wasn't it, or literally a matter of days. And look at the change around. He's not signed anybody. I think he signed one player, Moreno. He's turned them round in the space of 6, 7, 8 weeks. So I don't understand why you'd sack Conte. Fair enough, it wasn't working. You leave Stellini, the guy who was working with the players, the same group of players. Go and get the manager you want. If Nagelsmann's there and he's available, as far as I'm concerned, Tottenham should be throwing everything they have at Nagelsmann. How much do you want? How much do you want to spend? What players are you happy to let go? What players do you want us to look at potentially buying for you? Yeah. And can you start now?
I mean, obviously, as an Arsenal fan, I'll take the Arsenal hat off for now. Because I always do on this podcast and any podcast, because I don't want to seem biased, but I agree, all guns blazing or whatever you want, because they've got so much to do. They've got a manager's boots to fill. Because Ryan, I mean, I think the fans are probably just wanting the season to end now, so they can focus on that. And then they've got a defense to completely, in my opinion, they've got a defense to completely, take out. They need to start something else.
If I was Daniel Levy, I'd be saying to Harry Kane, look, thank you for everything you've done for us. We're going to use your money to rebuild. We're going to give you the move that you want. We're going to give you whatever you want, wherever you want to go. We'll make the deal happen. And then I'd be saying to the rest of the players, every single one of you is out the door. I mean, I think there's only a couple of players who can hold their head up high this season. I think Harry Kane's one. I think Højbjerg's another. I think
Bentancur's had it unlucky with his injury.
Bentancur's been unlucky with injuries, but he's always tried hard when he's played. I mean, other than that, I mean, even Son, I don't think Son can hold his head up the high that season. I think he's been.
Yeah, I think the problem with Son, and this goes back to the pressure thing we was discussing with Arsenal, but Son's a bit older and more experienced, so, it's kind of a different conversation. Son last year, great season, unbelievable, golden boot without a single goal of being in a set piece or something like that. And now this season, he kind of started, he started a bit iffy. And then he scored against Leicester, the hat trick within whatever minutes, and then he's gone off again. And he's just not, and then he picked up and then he's gone back down again. And the fact that Tottenham aren't playing really well, it's not gone in his favour either. And I think the morale's just a bit down in general in that stadium and in that training.
I think you've got to give a lot of credit to Newcastle as well, though, because as bad as Tottenham were, Newcastle were brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, 5-0.
Look at the job that Eddie Howe's done with Newcastle. He's hard. I mean, I know he spent 100 odd million, but that's been over the course of, I think.
But wisely as well, like Isaac Ramirez, brilliant sign.
This is what Tottenham need to look at, right? You've got a young manager in Nagelsmann's waiting for a job. He's proven that he can manage top players because he's been at some big clubs. Bring him in, let him work with the players that he wants. Let him go and buy some of the younger players that he might know from the German league or whatever leagues you want to get from. Get a team. Don't get individuals. I'm fed up of listening to, Harry Kane is one of our own or Son this. Get rid.
They said the same about Poch.
Get the money in.
They said Poch was one of their own. He's off to bloody Chelsea.
Get the money in, rebuild, get rid of all this deadwood. I don't even care if you have to give them away. If someone's interested in Ben Davis for 5 million, sell him. Just get him off the books and just get and start again, because
wages play a big impact in a football club. This is what people don't understand, and this is why you're starting to see like the termination of contracts behind closed doors, because wages play such a big, I
think Tottenham do pay quite low wage. I think a lot of Tottenham's model is that it's incentivized so that your base wage is quite low, but then you can earn more for whatever goals,
assists, and clean sheets,
table, cup runs, all that stuff. So I think that their model is quite, players coming in. I think the problem that you've got is that Tottenham, obviously, they're probably going to end up in maybe the Conference League or Europa League at best. That's obviously hard to attract certain players. But I think you've got players there. I think if you got Pasuma back playing properly, I think Romero has showed in the past he can.
Hate to say it as well. I think Richarlison will start doing something next season.
This is what I'm saying. You haven't. I mean, you've got Richarlison. You could give more minutes to. You could make him your main striker, or part of the main front three. You've got. I think Højbjerg's a brilliant footballer. I think Bentancur's in there. Basuma. Romero.
I think their midfield's pretty set on, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think they just need to sort what's behind them.
You've got players there. I think you need a new goalie. You need a new centre half. You probably could do with 2 fullbacks, a winger. but I don't think it's a million miles off. I just think it just needs a
Yeah.
refresh. Everything they need a new manager,
I
new
think the fact
ideas,
that
new culture.
they're going to lose. If they lose Kane, then Richarlison's going to need to be firing because they're not going to bring someone into Kane's caliber that quickly,
No, of
or
course
if at
not.
all.
I don't think you
If
can. You
ever.
can't replace Harry Kane, but you
Yeah.
can. Listen, Harry Kane. He's going to leave in the summer. I don't even think any of the most biased
I heard
Tottenham
one of
fans.
my good friends, actually, Spurs fan Luke. He made a good suggestion. I mean, not good for Tottenham, but Poch going to Chelsea. Maybe he'll try and bring Kane to Chelsea. That's
could
not a
see
bad
that.
shout because
I could
I
see
mean
that. Chelsea are
the
dying
only
for a
reason I'd
striker.
say no is because of the fact that Chelsea have no Europe next year. It's the only thing I can think.
Yeah,
Why would you want to?
But I think if there's a chance that he can win a trophy, I don't really think he cares too much about Europe. He's been in Europe
Next year.
Spurs.
Next year Chelsea will win something, but I don't. It depends how much the Champions League dream is sold to him, and who else sells
I think the Poch thing as well. The Poch thing is, listen, was Kane 30, 31? He's still got 3 or 4 years left at the top level. I think the Poch factor could be a huge factor in it because obviously we know how much he loves Poch. The only problem that I would have with Chelsea is that they ruin strikers. Every striker they've had since Drogba, arguably Costa.
Even Hal Felix, for God's sake. I liked him.
Yeah. That would be my worry. But, personally, if it was me, I think Kane's going to end up at Man United. I think that's
great. I mean, to me, going to Chelsea or United, it don't matter because I hate them all the same near enough. There's Tottenham there. Chelsea and United are just a bit below, but some good results otherwise at the weekend, and these are the results from last night and the games coming up. Leicester with a huge win over Wolves. And then snatching a point last night, Jamie Vardy getting his first goal since October, when it matters most. They had
2 disallowed as well.
Yeah, I know. I'll tell you what, Bamford, that miss from Bamford though, that could be costly. I want to get your thoughts on Everton. Obviously, another loss at the weekend, and they've sort of the Sean Dyche era sort of came, and then people are starting to believe, he's going to keep him. He's going to keep him up.
There's only one saving grace to this poor season is that the fact that if Everton get relegated, I'll quite happily take a year without Europe if Everton go down. Because not just because listen, Liverpool and Everton's always a tough game for us no matter what. And if we have ambitions of trying to challenge again for the title next season, then that's 2 hard games that we won't have to play. The Merseyside derby is always hard. I mean, we haven't won at Goodison for a while.
We haven't won at Goodison for a while either.
It's a tough place to go regardless because they always raise it for the one-off games. But it would be funny to see Everton go down. They'll bounce. They would bounce straight back the next season. But it would be hilarious to see them get relegated. And as I say,
they have had some hard luck. I was talking about this yesterday, actually, in terms of like the way where their money goes, because like they've sold some players for quite reasonable amount of money. Anthony Gordon, and there you go. But
I think it's like most teams down there. They haven't recruited well enough. They spent a hell of a lot of money, so they're now restricted by financial fair play, which means that last summer they couldn't spend. I think Damari Gray was one of their most expensive signings, and he was
free agent as well. I think.
Yeah, it was like 3 million.
Pretty much, yeah. It was not much at all.
Obviously, they've got this new development of the stadium, which is obviously restricting the budget a little bit. But ultimately, they've just got it wrong. They got it wrong with Rafa Benitez. They got it wrong with Lampard.
Even the signings as well. Like I was looking yesterday, a listing of like certain players, and like people like James Rodriguez, Dele Alli. Obviously, we know what happened with Sigurdsson. That's 3 attacking midfield.
Yeah,
I
think they've had it tough with injuries. I will say that. I think like Calvert-Lewin, obviously the season before last or the season before this one had a really good season. Last season and this season he's been pretty non-existent. They can't get him on the pitch. They signed Neil Maupay, who I think has probably got 10 goals in 5 seasons or something stupid in the Premier League.
Just turns up in big games for Brighton, but he's not going to do that for Everton because Everton are a different team.
They've tried to rely on youth as well with Sims and Davis and Seamus Coleman still at right back. He was playing 10 years ago at right back. I think they've just haven't addressed the areas that they needed to. But again, it's very difficult to sign top quality international players that are going to make the difference when you're down there. And for the last 2 seasons, they've been fighting relegation. They've been staying up by the skin of their teeth. It's hard. It is hard for them teams. But if Brighton can do it, Brighton are a perfect example that you can find these players because they seem to find them every season. So they need to obviously get the recruitment right. I think Sean Dyche was brought in purely because if they go down, they've got a manager who's going to get them straight back up. He knows the league.
Do you think next season he's the right man for that though? Because or are they just going to keep down this?
I think if he goes back, I think there would have been conversations that when he took the job that look, if he doesn't save them, he gets the opportunity to bring them back. Listen, imagine Everton in the Championship and the they'd probably win that pretty easily, I'd imagine.
You'd hope.
You'd hope. Well, I wouldn't. I'd rather see him stay down there. But no, but being realistic, if Everton go down, they bounce back straight away. But maybe, I know it sounds stupid, but sometimes maybe that's what you need. When a club's been on the verge of relegation year after year after year, and you've got the capital and you've got the draw. Look, if they go down to the Championship, they're going to obviously have to restructure the team. They're going to have first pick of every single player that's on that market. And then you come back and you rebuild. We've seen it happen with the likes of Newcastle. Look at them now. I know they've had obviously the money poured into them, but I don't think money is the issue for Everton. It's just everything else. It's the recruitment. It's the management situation. They keep making silly decisions, and I think they've got the right one now with Dyche. I think Dyche is perfect for the level that they're operating at, and like I say, we'll wait and see. They're not got the easiest fixtures between now and the end of the season.
I'm just looking at the ones this week. Like West Ham away.
It's a massive
I think that's good. I think that's going to be tough for you. You've got West Ham away. Chelsea play Brentford. Obviously, we've discussed tonight's game for me. And then Everton have got Newcastle. If there's a team I don't want to be playing after that weekend, it's Newcastle.
I think that
I'm pretty sure they play 3 of the bottom 5 in their next 3 games. So
I think
that's in their hands. I think
Everton's saving grace is that Leeds, Forest, and Southampton are worse teams than them.
Yeah.
And they are they're 2 points behind Leeds with the game in hand. They're only 1 point above Nottingham Forest. But I do think that. I do think that Leeds will go down. I can't see where Leeds get a win from.
So Leicester play. Everton play Brighton away next weekend on Monday bank holiday. On the coronation. That's a probably 3 points. And then they've got Leicester away. That's a massive game for them. That's a massive game next Saturday.
Leicester looked all right yesterday, to be fair to them. I know they only got a point, but they had 2 goals disallowed. They were pretty comfortable. Maddison was spraying the ball around. Tielemans was doing all right. Vardy's obviously got his goal, so they'll be hoping that sort of sparks.
Vardy just wants to bow out, probably knowing that he's, this would be the last season for him. He wants to bow out knowing he saved the club and kept them up. I think he's going to really try and,
I think Leicester will be all right. I really do. I think Leicester will be okay. I think they've got enough to stay up. Everton, I worry about. They just can't score goals. Leeds can't stop goals going in the net. And Forest and Southampton are just...
Southampton versus Bournemouth tomorrow as well. That's another massive game.
And Bournemouth aren't out of it. I know they're only on 33 points. So if Southampton could win that and drag them into that would be...
It's all huge. Let's talk about Man United. Obviously, they've got Tottenham on Thursday night. Huge game in terms of the top 6, shall we say. United's pretty comfortable in the top 4, so they won't be worrying. But what do you think with Man United this season? I want to get your thoughts on the whole domestic. They could potentially be getting. I don't think they will, but they could potentially be getting a domestic double. How well do you think of a season that is for Erik ten Hag? The FA Cup and the League Cup, should they do it?
Well, Mourinho won the League Cup.
This is what I was thinking. I thought Mourinho's done very similar things, but
I don't think it's a great season. I think getting them back in the top 4, okay, you could probably say that's progress. They've won a trophy, progress. They've got to a final, progress. But when you actually watch them, there's still not that much difference to what we've seen over the last, sort of 2 or 3 years, really. I don't think that they play a particularly good brand of football. I don't think that they've got a particularly exciting group of players. we've seen this season that they've been quite easy to beat at times by a lot of teams. I think obviously Liverpool, Man City beat them pretty easily. I think the 2 games that Arsenal played against them, I know that you lost one earlier in the season, but I think you were the better team. I think that the game at the Emirates, you were by far the better team, and they kind of, the scoreline flattered them a little bit. I know it was a last minute goal, but Arsenal were always going to win that game. I don't really watch them and think, wow, they're playing this amazing brand of football. I think they're just getting the job done at the minute. They're just crawling over the line. I think Brighton the other day were by far the better side. I think if Brighton had a goal scorer, that would have been.
I said that exact thing. I said if they had a clinical finisher, they win that game.
I think they got lucky with that semi-final. I mean, they've got absolutely slapped up by Seville. I think there'll be a mixture. I think United fans will be content with the fact that they've managed to obviously bridge a bit of a gap. They've got a trophy in the bag, which is always obviously important for a new manager. But I think Manchester United fans will probably still be under no illusions that they're miles off. I think they're miles off Arsenal. I think they're miles off Man City. I think the Liverpool game proved that when Liverpool turn up, they're miles off Liverpool still. I think they're probably, in terms of league position, they've overachieved slightly with the performances we've seen. And I think there's also that's sort of gone alongside the fact that likes of Chelsea, Liverpool, Tottenham have been poor this season and have not had any sort of consistency at all. I think Ten Hag will be. He'll be happy-ish. He'll be happy that he's managed to get them back in the top 4. I think that's without them losing every game between now and the end of the season. I think they're pretty much there. That gives him the opportunity to bring in the summer a different caliber of player that maybe they've been looking at for the last 2 or 3 years. I think if they signed Harry Kane, all of a sudden you possibly change your outlook on them in terms of scoring goals. I think Weghorst was just a stopgap. Rashford, obviously, he's had a good season. I think they'll be okay. I think they'll be happy, United fans, that they've got a trophy. They're going to be back in the Champions League. There's a potential to get another one at the end of the season. If they finish the season with 2 trophies and a Champions League place, I think they'd be absolutely over the moon with that.
I still can't believe that City have gone from. I mean, when we were 8 points clear, there was a potential, and Man City had Bayern coming up. There was a potential for City to not win absolutely anything. And now, they're on the brink of a treble. It's absolutely mind-blowing.
I think it's a hard one. It is a hard one with United, because when you actually watch them, they're so poor. I find them such a poor team. But then you look at their scores when you don't watch them, and they seem to pick up decent results. And
they're too reliant on players, aren't they? Like, I think they've missed Eriksen. I know that sounds absolutely bizarre, but I think they've missed him. Casemiro was injured for a little bit. They haven't really got that clinical finish yet, and they're so reliant on Rashford. When he was out, I think that sort of made them take a bit of a dip.
I think someone asked me the question the other day, and they said if Arsenal finished second with no trophies and United finished third with a Carabao Cup, who's had a better season?
It's got to be Arsenal. It's got to be Arsenal. I'm sorry,
I kind of thought it was kind of a question. It kind of took me back a bit, and I thought, well, they have got a trophy.
But also, we've gone from 8th.
You've gone from a further away. Yeah, you've gone from a further away. You've challenged for the title, but
I don't feel like United have improved from last season. That's the difference.
No, I think they've got better results this season when maybe they don't deserve to, but they have beaten a lot of the teams. They've beaten Liverpool, they've beaten Chelsea, so they have beaten some of the teams. I think they beat Arsenal. So they have beaten a lot of teams. Then they've lost to silly teams. I think it was Brentford beat them 4 or 5 at the start of the season.
Yeah, I remember that game. It's straight after I went straight from the Emirates to watch that, and that was just carnage. That was a car crash.
It's a hard one, United. I think the United fans will probably be a lot more happier than sort of I think they'll be looking at it in a different way to maybe the rival fans. I think the rival fans still look at United as being quite a way off, whereas I think maybe United fans will probably feel they're closer than what we look at it as. But yeah, I think you'd have to say he's done an all right job, Ten Hag. I think he's done okay.
He's there for the future now, isn't he?
He hasn't pulled up trees. He hasn't pulled up trees, but he's done, I think, what's been expected in year 1, which was top 4 and can you get a trophy? And he's done that. So you'd have to say that he's done a pretty good job up to now.
100%. Well, I think that kind of covers all the big topics, Dale. But hopefully tonight goes well for Arsenal, and hopefully we are not having to refund our fans for their tickets at the Ethiad. But yeah, I'm going to let you get on with the rest of your day because you got what you're working today. And I'm going to probably in about 2 hours' time head off to the pub, try to get that beer coat on me. And just hope for the best. Hope Holding can do a job on Haaland. Hope Zinchenko doesn't, keep up
It's
his
a tough
errors.
one because I don't know which game to watch tonight because obviously I want to watch Liverpool, but I also want to watch the Arsenal game because I want to see how it turns out. So I might have to have one on the pad and one on the telly.
Liverpool on TV?
Yeah, we're all on. Everyone's on BT Sport, aren't they? So
red button thing.
Red button thing, I think. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting. I hate to say it, Arsenal fans, but I do think you will get beat. But as I said to you before we went live, football's a weird game and weird stuff happens. And also, I think Arsenal have got nothing to lose. If they lose, everyone's going to say, well, we kind of expected it. And if you win, then it's all there for you. So it'll be interesting. I think it's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to it. As a neutral, I enjoy these games because I can enjoy it. Whereas you'll be
watching as a neutral.
You'll be hiding behind the sofa.
That's the one, mate. That's the one. But yeah, people that have been tuning in, thank you. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your week. Make sure you smash that like button. We'll be back next week to talk about, hopefully, a good result for Arsenal and others. But yeah, enjoy, take care, and we'll speak to you soon. Take it easy, all.